Hey, Adri, you want to try this Saigon fruit beer?
A what?
You know, a Saigon apple beer.
No. What are you talking about? What's that?
What? You don't know? They taste so good. There's chili, ginger, and this one's apple. I'm trying to speak more Vietnamese. Try this fermented apple juice.
You're not speaking Vietnamese. You're speaking English. Show me what you're drinking.
Here.
Saigon Cider.
Yeah, that's what I said. Fermented apple juice. If you want to enjoy a Saigon Cider while we're stuck in lockdown, you can still get delivery through Classic Deli or By Nature. Check out the links in the notes. Welcome to episode 2, season 2 of 7 Million Bikes. Thanks for listening. My name's Neil Mackay. I'm your host as always. And with me today is Biscuit, who's asleep on the couch as always. But my guest is Sen Nguyen, who I'm very excited to talk to. Today is going to be maybe a little bit more serious than previous episodes because the topic is quite serious. And I do have to give a little bit of a warning that we will be talking about sexual abuse today in Vietnam. And so if that is something that might be a trigger to you or something that would be discomforting, then please feel free to stop listening at this point. But if you are interested, please keep listening. We're going to be talking about her life as a journalist and covering sexual abuse in Vietnam as well, and her experiences, of course, of living in Saigon because she's actually from Hanoi. So thank you for joining me today, Sen.
Wow, that was a very big introduction. Thank you, Neil, for having me.
How are you doing today?
I've been very welcomed by your puppy Biscuits. I'm very happy about that.
She's a bit of an
adorable.
Angel. So you're from Hanoi originally?
Yes, I was born and raised in Hanoi, and when I was 21, I left the country for the first time to go to Korea for studying.
Oh, okay, and was that like a university degree?
Yes, it was. I was very fortunate. I got the Korean government scholarship, and I went there. Originally, it was just for 1 year, and then I liked it so much, so I transferred my study, and 1 year became 3 years.
So what did you like about Korea?
Wow, that's a good question. I like so many things. I gained almost 10 kilos the first year I was there. So I guess the first thing is food. I didn't live in Seoul. I lived in a much smaller town. I think it's the 5th largest in Korea. Seoul is the biggest. It's named Gwangju. And Gwangju has only like 1.5 million when I was there. And it was a very warming, affectionate community, at least in my experience. And I learned so much from it because I never left Vietnam before. I mean, I think my parents took me to China when I was little, but I remember it vaguely. So it was a huge cultural shock for me, even though everybody kind of look like me, but they don't. I look like them. I'm always mistaken to be Korean. When I'm with Chinese people, they think I'm one of them. So I guess one of the things I like about Korea is just that I look indifferent, but when I do express myself, they see that I'm different and they accept that. I feel, at least in Gwangju, I'm not sure how it is in Seoul.
And do you mean culturally different? Culturally
different, mindset different. They find it very bizarre to hear Vietnamese women speaking an American accent to them. I repeatedly said I've never been to America. I've never been outside of Asia. Please trust me. I've never been anywhere near there. And like, there's no way you sound like you do. There's no way Vietnamese people sound like you do. I'm like, well, Biscuit is like agreeing with me. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I do. This is how I talk. That one of the reasons is because Vietnamese women is the largest migrant bride in Korea at the moment. When I was there, it was the second largest. Now it's the largest.
I read your article about this, yeah.
So for them, this is the image of Vietnamese women that they have, like less educated, they don't speak English, they come from a smaller town, they are not that expressive. I'm like, well, there are other people just like us. There are other people like me. So for them, it's just very bizarre. And love seeing that interaction, just to break down the the stereotype you have of Vietnamese woman in your face.
How did that manifest? Like, what would they say to you?
It was never, well, there was one time it was outright discrimination, but like that was very rare. I got asked more than once if I came to Korea for marriage, which is, I guess, standard if they think that Vietnamese women came to Korea
That's
for
the
marriage.
assumption. If you're Vietnamese
Right,
and you're in
yeah,
Korea, you're a bride.
that's true. And the other thing would just be like, I don't know if you would call that positive discrimination when they just feel so odd and taken back to hear me speaking English to them in that way. So I feel this a very complex privilege. Like I'm a Vietnamese migrant woman, but I'm not a wife in Korea. So I got this double experiences of being there, which is very rewarding. There are complications there, but I learn a lot from it. So for me, that's important at the end of the day, that I got to learn something.
And so I read your article and I was absolutely disgusted. So do you want to tell our listeners then a little bit more about the situation? You're just mentioning now that Vietnam is now the biggest exporter of brides to Korea. I mean, when I read your article, I didn't even really know that was a thing. You know, you always hear about Russian brides, you know, in the West anyway. It's kind of, you hear about, you know.
Are we talking about the South Korean brokers?
Yeah. So tell our listeners a little bit about that if they haven't read your article.
Okay. So let's just make it simple. So Korea has been suffering from a low birth rate. It's one of the lowest birth rates in the world. And essentially what is happening now is that the suburban areas and less rural areas, they're suffering from the lack of wives, because women, when they get a degree, they're more educated to move to the city or further overseas for better opportunities, whereas men who are farmers, mostly fishermen, they stay where they are to keep up with the family businesses, so they can't find a husband, they can't find a wife. So what happened was that this year, South Korean government offer subsidies to 35 how do you say that word? Municipalities, which is called, what is it, like marriage subsidies to these localities, so they can use this money to go overseas to find a spouse. The idea is, so the target is mainly men, obviously. The idea is wonderful, like you want everyone to have a family, blah blah blah, but it doesn't guarantee protection and right for the other half, right? And one of these this subsidy, one of the things that is covered is brokerage fees. Now they can use it however they want. It's for broker service, but then they don't actually anticipate how these brokers are doing to offer these services. And I came across this report that was written by a watchdog organization in Korea. Now I have to mention this. This is one of like the backstage story when it comes to any journalist's work. I killed myself writing this story because all the findings or reports were in Korean. I had to read it in Korean, process it in my brain, explain it in Vietnamese to my boss, and then write it in English. I think I have a few gray hair after that. Like, it was insane. Like, the story came out just as I want it to be. It could be better, but it's quite satisfying for me. But yeah, it was very difficult. And so they would offer these brokerage fees, and essentially some of these South Korean brokers, they go online, they go on YouTube, and in Korea there's also Naver, which is a Korean version of social network instead of Facebook. And they promote these women in ways of, like, if you scroll through Amazon, you see product without the specifics. That's how it goes. That's how they look. They even number these women, and their information about their age, where they're from, their hobbies, how willing they are to marry a Korean man, what they're looking for in a man. But the other way around this picture is not available, as in these women don't see the men who are looking at them. And by law in Korea, South Korean brokers cannot show more than one woman at a time. But at that space, on an online platform, they're seeing 1,000 women in a day. That's obviously something wrong there. So my story was just going through that direction. There's only one thing that I regret about that story is I didn't get to talk to any of these women, because when you look at these YouTube videos that's showing them one by one as a marriage item, they don't show their contact details. They only show their names. I tried to track one of them down, but obviously they didn't want to speak to me. I also contacted the numbers listed in the YouTube channel information, because they say, if you like any of these girls, contact us. Here's our number, blah blah. I did text them. I did say who I am, and then respond, which is fair and understandable, I guess. But yeah, that's a very intense story. But we don't know if any of them is being coerced into doing this. We don't know, because I'm not a human trafficking expert. I can't see the signs. But yes, there has been pushback. When I shared the articles, one of the readers was like, well, what is the difference with Tinder then? It's very similar. We put people online, they consent to it. What's wrong? Oh, these women want the same thing. They want to get a husband. What's wrong with that? And I talked to a gender rights expert. He works at IC, is a Hanoi NGO, and he said that it doesn't matter if these women consent. It's how they portray it is problematic here. You don't see men being portrayed the same way. You don't see, even if they are, it's still wrong. I don't think it's fair for all these women to become one of the items in the list. And what I will push back though is that, do they know this is how they're being portrayed, and have they been pushed back? And if they do, what do these brokers say? So it's a very complicated situation. I don't think I have the black and white answer here. If it doesn't sit well, then there's something wrong. If you were to put, for example, your wife in that list, yeah, or if your sister in that list, how would you feel? So I would ask myself that question, because we don't really know what's going on behind the YouTube screen, and that's scary.
And in your article, you mentioned, so most of these women come from poor rural areas in Vietnam, right?
Statistically, that's what we know so far.
It's a kind of, it's a symptom of poverty, right? That these women are then putting themselves forward, willingly or not, because they come from a poor background themselves, and then they're being offered this route to Korea, so how do the women perceive, from what you know, how do they perceive this process that I'm going to go to Korea, and what do they think their life is going to be like versus what their life will actually be like, or could actually be like?
I would say yes, statistically, a lot of these women who have gone to Korea and have shown interest that they want to go to Korea for marriage are usually not from big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, because unfortunately a lot of parents still think that the ultimate goal of a Vietnamese woman is to get married to a good family and to a husband that can provide, make you happy. Sure, that's not the only way to be happy. That's not the only way to have a fulfilling life. And I have to say that these narratives that being implanted in Vietnamese women's minds are not only omnipresent in rural areas. I have been one of those. I have received this story from my family. So I'm not fishing for compliments, so don't say anything. But I grew up all my life listening to my family say I'm not pretty. Up until I was 18, when I moved out, I don't listen to those things anymore. But this is what I heard, and they would tell me that, is it because you don't have a Vietnamese beauty standard? We think that it's best for you to get married to a foreign man, because that, I know, I can see your face right now, Neil. It's what happened. This is my life. And they would be like, oh, again, foreign men, they are much better off and more educated, and you can move abroad. And this is what I heard all my life. So when they talk about like, oh, this is only happened to rural women, I'm gonna say it's not true. City women have to hear this narrative as well, but we have the privilege, we have the education to, some of us can jump through that loophole and be like, this is not the only way I can live my life. So this is narrative, yeah, and it becomes, it, whether it manifests into a reality depends on you and other external factors. But so yeah, they would think that is the way to get a better life. But there have been numerous accounts of sexual violence, domestic violence in Korea, done on migrant wives and Vietnamese women. Unfortunately, many of them. We recently ran a story about a Vietnamese woman who became a police in South Korea. She actually lived in the same city that I did, and she said since she became a police officer, the rates of domestic violence have not decreased. It's actually either stagnant or increasing, which is scary because a lot of the women here, they don't know about it. They still think that Korea is, what is it? Is a Asian version of American dream, I guess. But it's not true, and all these reports and findings are not within their reach because they're not reading this. They only see the tunnel vision, which is not a fault of theirs because their goal is to not be bothered by the complication, but it's to get there, to have a happier life that they can provide to their family. So the root problem here, I think, is not that these women are, how to say it, they're not gold diggers, but they
just want a better life.
They deprive of education opportunities, they are deprived of information, and they are deprived of the narratives where they can make it on their own without relying on a better off male.
So these women, they're not being sold, right? They're being offered the opportunity. Is that what it is? And then
there are evidence that some of them are trafficked.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that there's no human trafficking elements in it.
But the way it's presented is, here's an opportunity to
that's
go to Korea.
All human trafficking story has that element of incentive. Yeah. Oh, we have a good job in China. Do you want to come over? Oh, there's a very loving, kind of old Korean man, but he has money and he can take care of it. Would you like to come? There's always incentive there, right?
Because I do work with, through my job, we support Blue Dragon, who you're probably aware of, an unbelievable job about sex trafficking. And they do a lot of initiatives to go into places like Hue, where there's disadvantaged rural women who have been trafficked, and children as well, and they go in and educate right at the village level to be like, if someone comes in and they offer you this opportunity and they're telling you it's going to be like this is the reality. Is there anything in place right now to help these women who are being put on YouTube and sold like cattle to Korea, or is that just going to continue on? Like you're saying, Vietnam is now the biggest exporter, which is a crazy thing to put it like that, but the biggest exporter of brides,
of women, essentially.
Of women to another country. Is there anything in place to stop that happening?
Okay, you're asking.
We'll be right back.
Join pilot and adventurer Fernando Pino as he takes you on journeys to discover exciting destinations across the UK and Europe. You'll fly with him to hidden gems and experience local culture, from bustling streets to serene hideaways and the best places to eat, sleep, and play. Travel Plans is more than a podcast. It's your ticket to exploring the world and its history with a friend. In this episode, we are flying to discover a beachside paradise perfect for the whole family. Discover golden sands, activities galore, and even free childcare so you get your own break too. Why am I still here?
Solutions. So in my story, the South Korean Brooklyn story, I did mention that I contacted the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family in Korea, and they didn't respond, which should have been in the story, but it's not. But I did contact them, and unfortunately there was no response. Vietnam it's making progress. I have to say, it's not like we are aware of the problem and we are avoiding it. It's not that. And media coverage is a step forward. It's a step forward. It's a step that pushes us towards that goal. I don't think we can ever. I'm going to be blunt. I don't think we can ever eradicate this problem for good. It's always going to be there. There's always some woman who's going to get tricked. Boys are being tricked, being trafficked as well, for labor mostly, to the UK, for example. But what is important to me that we are making progress towards that direction. There has been commitment and efforts by both governments. This is not recent. It had happened since many stories and accounts and evidence that South Korean men are abusing their migrant wives. So there has been educational programs for wives to learn Korean, to learn about the culture. There has been less lesson and program for the men to learn about their spouse, culture aspects and what they need and so on. And that's rare. And for me, that's where it should be hit harder. It should be pushed further. That understanding should come from both sides. And there is this law in Korea. I'm going to paraphrase here, so do, listener, if you catch me making mistakes, please go ahead and let me know. There is a law in Korea where the migrant wives cannot stay or retain her residence if a divorce happens, and she cannot prove that it's from both sides. What does that mean? That means if she cannot prove that her husband is also doing something, she has to leave and has to leave everything behind, and in many cases their children there. But that's, for me, is very bizarre, because a divorce is hardly ever just one person's fault, right? Right, Biscuit? So that law, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. So there should be some changes there, and I think attention is being put there. There's many problematic issues in the legal framework in Korea when it comes to dealing with and helping and protecting migrant women. Solution here, there is also educational programs done by the government and non-governmental organizations. Blue Dragon is doing a wonderful job. I can't think of other organizations on top of my head. There are many forums on Facebook created by migrant Vietnamese women themselves for other migrant Vietnamese women to know about the life there, as well as to help each other make it in Korea.
So the migrant women who are creating Facebook pages, is that to give advice and support other Vietnamese women in Korea? And what kind of advice are they giving them?
Oh, like, I didn't go through everything, but the latest update was like language lessons, tax handling.
So quite practical.
Very practical,
not like,
very practical advice. Right. Language services, because language barrier is always a thing. I don't know if you have heard of it. There was a very recent case of South Korean man beating his Vietnamese wife for 3 hours, and it was on YouTube, and it was explosive, right?
That was in Vietnam, right?
No, it was in Korea.
Oh, that was in Korea.
It was in Korea, and what was, to me, this is gonna sound horrible, but to me, to see that is, it has become a normal thing for many people, because in Vietnam, beating your wife is seen as a culture thing, and it's very sad. But what is saddening to me was that there was a kid in that video, and he was, or she was, observing all of this, and she's going, and that child's going to be traumatized. And to me, that's where my focus is at. Adults, they can work through this. There are many mechanisms that can help them, but I don't know what is going to happen with the kid. And the media, the Korean media, hasn't talked much about the kid, which I understand, because he needs his privacy, or she needs his privacy. But I was very curious to learn how they give him remedies. So because of that incident, and it's gone so spread out that it alerted the Korean government on the top level, and they actually expressed their regret. I've never seen that before. I've never seen, at least in my time, or maybe I'm out of date when it comes to information, but I've never seen any South Korean top governmental official express their regret that one of my people is being hit by his citizen in their country. And to me, I'm not saying this would yield into any solution, because we haven't seen it yet, but I see an acknowledgement there, and that's a very big step. There's a breakthrough for me to see that. So solution, if you want to create a problem, they should know there's a problem there in the first place, right? And I'm glad that we are making that progress. I'm excited to see more, and I'm going to talk about this as a journalist, not as an activist. So we better shift back questions to journalist questions now.
Well, what was the fallout from that video? Like, has that man been arrested? Obviously, the Korean government stepping in.
He was arrested. However, there hasn't been any more information about what charges he would face and how many years he would spend in jail. We know that he was arrested shortly after the video was published, but that's the thing, you know. We don't know if that was just like the bandage solution, like, oh yeah, he hit someone, it's so bad, we're just gonna arrest him, and we don't know what happened to the guy after, and that's what I would like to know.
And in light of the divorce law that you've just mentioned, and so if she was to then divorce him...
Actually, after that, the South Korean court ruled in favor of the migrant woman, because they can see that they are so disadvantaged in many of these situations. So they ruled the case in favor of her. So she can stay if she wants to, but she wants a divorce in custody.
Rightly so.
Fairly.
I want to pick up on something you said just a minute ago. You talked about education for the men in this situation, right? Which I think, yeah, it's so crucial, right? Because so often it's, oh, what can the women do to stop this, right? But they're the victims, they're not the perpetrators. And this goes back, you know, growing up, or you talk about kind of rape culture, and you go, what was the woman wearing, things like that. You know, you've heard this advice in the past, not so much now, I don't think, but in the past, like, you know, don't go out in a dark lit area with a short dress on. But it's like, well, a woman should be able to go wherever she wants, dressed whatever she wants. She's not inviting rape by being dressed like that. So that is good. That is important. I think that the men are educated, like, to, you know, in this process as well. But it ties into, I've read some of your articles, and the one that kind of like I felt uneasy about was there's women now being given self-defense lessons.
That's my favorite. Okay.
And as soon as I read that, I was like, but no, they shouldn't be taught self-defense. The men should be taught not to sexually abuse them. And I know that it's a practical solution, but at the same time, I'm like, women shouldn't have to learn self-defense. You know what I mean? That should not be the solution to this problem.
That's very interesting. Yeah, this is going to be a heated debate. You're not the first one who brought that up. Like, why should we teach them self-defense? We should teach men this. Well, but there's nobody teaching men just yet. I haven't seen any education of this large scale that's big enough for us to pay heed to it, that men should not be doing this and that. So in the meantime, we are going to do this on our own. We're going to take care of ourselves. Just like we all agree that this issue cannot be so one side. So while we are sorting out stuff, we wait until you guys sorted out your stuff, yeah? So when it comes to this story, it's very easy to fall into that logical fallacy of like, what about autism? What about this and what about that? Well, this story, the existence of this story, the fact that I'm bringing it up doesn't discredit other story, doesn't discredit the fact that men should learn about this as well. I'm telling the story on this one side. Yeah, and when there are education programs for men, believe me, I'll be reporting it, and then you can say, everybody can sit back and be like, okay, something has been done for the men.
So in practicality, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Like, I think it's definitely like, you know,
I know
that's great if women can be trained to not do that. But I'm more saying philosophically, I guess, that it's terrible that it has to come to this, that we have to train women to protect themselves, right?
Exactly. I think it's definitely something to put in mind. It's not just to defend yourself against sexual predators, right? There are sex predators. There are so many other vile things that can happen to us. It can be robbers. It can be, I don't know, a gang that want to mess you up. So it doesn't just about like women versus men. It's just women learning that they are capable of protecting themselves. They don't have to rely on anybody else. And I think it's a great boost of self-confidence for kids. So my story actually focused on the kids' classes. This is a class for kids. It's as heartbreaking as it is for me to stay there in the class. There was one little detail that I was trying so hard to blend it in the story. And I'm not going to spoil it. I mean, I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story, but I'm going to spoil this detail for the readers, yeah?
Well, what I will do is I'll put your stories in the show notes with a link. So anyone, if you're listening, go into the show notes and you'll be able to find a link to all these stories that we're talking about.
But bear in mind, this is not a breakthrough story. It's just a very mundane, but I think it's an interesting read. So you guys might have heard about the ex-prosecutor who may or may not touch a girl. Well, the video showed that he did. He got 1 year and 6 months in jail. So there was one thing that he told the press when he was, or told the police when he was arrested and was questioned, was that he petted her. He pet her. He didn't do anything bad. He was just petted her. So the instructor in the self-defense class that I was observing, he used that word when he was staging an attack. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pet you. Let me pet you. And it hit me that that word itself, from a very affectionate viewpoint, from a standpoint, has now become a tool to teach kids that men or anyone cannot touch them. That for me is a huge, how do I say this? It was shocking, and it's not something that I want for my kids. If I were to use that word, I cannot use it now because somebody has spoiled it. It was not supposed to be like that. So for me, sexual abuse, in cases there are certain words and linguistic tools that predators use, and it's just and it will become this traumatic trigger if you were to be in that situation, or if you were just emotionally affected by that story. You will not be able to use that word anymore. And for me as a journalist, my whole life, my whole career is about words, right? And now I'm just traumatized with that word itself. So that's detail for me. It's very crucial to put it there.
So I'll just give another reminder that we'll probably move into maybe talking a little bit about your work regarding sexual abuse in Vietnam. And so again, if that is discomforting for you to hear, then please feel free to stop listening at this point. And I do want to say as well, I really appreciate your work because as a stupid Westerner foreigner, and I've been ignorant enough not to learn the language, so I don't get access to all the information and what's going on in Vietnam. So I do appreciate the work that you do and that VnExpress does. It's really one of the only outlets that we can read Vietnamese news in English. And obviously some of these cases are going nationwide, like so this ex-prosecutor that you're talking about, that was happened in District 4 where I used to live, and it happened in a building one of my friends lived in, and I've seen it. It's absolutely disgusting. And if you don't know what we're talking about, again, we'll have the link in the notes. You can see it. Just this week he's been sentenced to 1.5 years in jail, which is fantastic, but he's appealed it immediately after. So we have to keep an eye on what's going to happen.
Just a quick note. Yes, I do work for VnExpress, the English newspaper. However, all the views I'm expressing here are mine and not any other publication that I work for.
So I know that you wouldn't call yourself an expert on sexual abuse.
Exactly.
But you have written many articles about it lately, and not just yourself, it's getting more and more high profile in Vietnam. Obviously this case with the ex-prosecutor. There was the ethics teacher up north. I remember that one was quite recent. That was horrible. And more it's in the news, which is great because if we can bring more attention to it, hopefully we can help prevent it. So in your opinion, what needs to change in Vietnam? What needs to happen in terms of policy, awareness, education to help protect more children here?
I have to put it out there that sexual abuse has always been a problem, but it has only gained publicity and awareness in Vietnam in recent years. One of the reasons is because open talk of sex is taboo. Everybody knows this in Vietnam. You can have some intimate conversation with your partner, maybe with your close friends, but when it comes to being sexually abused, it's not something easy you can talk about. And I feel like there should be safe space for people to be able to express themselves if they are being abused. And I'm talking in terms of household. Parents should be willing to listen to the story, or at least notice the signs when there's something wrong there. Also, sex education is not a very established program here. There has been good news though. I did provide a story about sex education in Vietnam, and there has been progress since. Ho Chi Minh City itself is deploying sex education classes for, I think, kids under 10. I don't remember the announcement. It was announced last week, And that's a great thing. That you can see people are paying attention to something that is so natural for all of us. Sex. Everybody does sex. We need sex to reproduce and continue this species. Why are we not talking about it? I don't want my kids to learn about sex through porn. I did that, right? And unfortunately, I have to, because there's no other means of learning it. But now I can see that we are making towards that process. Yes, you learn that sex education is beyond biological. What is it? Coitus? Is that the word to use? But there's also other stuff, like what is intimacy, what is acceptable or not. And I don't know if the current program that Ho Chi Minh City is running is going to be like that. It's going to be like, oh, this is acceptance, this is not, this is a family petting you, and it is a man touching you appropriately. You should know the difference. So I don't know if we are actually there yet, but just put it there. Just put the sex education program in all schools, and then we can start talking about what is not acceptable or not. So yes, we are talking about that. There's also the Congress and the national government of officials have talked about readjust and amend the legal framework when it comes to sexual abuse. There has been opinions that there should be in the National Assembly that there should be harsher punishment for child offenders, and there should be clear definition of what is sexual harassment, what is sexual abuse, and what is sexual molestation. For the first time, actually, they have input what is sexual harassment at work in the law, and I think that's fantastic. And now we are talking both adult and kid offense, and I think one of the root problems as well when it comes to sexual abuse in Vietnam is that we don't know what it is. We don't know what is constitute a sexual abuse, and that was what the debate of what the ex-prosecutor did as well. Some people say, oh, he was just loving, he was a grandfather, he was hugging someone of his granddaughter. But I find that argument very problematic. We don't hug people, like Vietnamese people, we don't hug. Like, this is not something we do, especially strangers. Like, why would you do that? So for me, from a cultural viewpoint, that argument has already lost my attention. So we don't know what it is, what sexual abuse is. So if we can define by legal framework, if it can be something of a discussion within the family itself, as like, this is not okay, this is okay, if you should always keep distance to strangers. I know this will go back to your original argument about like everybody's being too cautious, women and girls should feel safe wherever they are. Unfortunately, it's not as safe as we want to, so there should always be some attention going into what is okay and what is not.
It's interesting you're saying about providing education to children, especially. What's the difference between, affection, petting from a family member, and sexual abuse, right? Because we obviously still have to show love and care to children, right? And there's a correct way to do that. And it's a shame that that's being used as an excuse, and I saw it on your article in the comments. One person commented, but in Vietnam we're all called uncles and grandparents, and we should be able to show affection. The man in the lift was just showing affection to this girl. And it is a shame because you don't want to lose that being able to show affection, which I've noticed in Vietnam can be very loving and very caring when you see somebody with a child and they're very affectionate towards them in a very clearly non-sexual way. That's a beautiful thing.
That's fine. The premise of it is wonderful. Yeah, sure, we should be affectionate with each other, but I think the children should have to say in whether they're okay with that affection or not, whether they want to receive that affection. The camera footage of the ex-prosecutor's case clearly showed that the girl ran out. She ran out of the elevator as soon as it's open.
The family said she wasn't traumatized.
Well, I don't care what the family say. I want to hear what she said. But in light of child privacy protection, I'm okay with not hearing her. But it's just for the whole thing for me. I'm just focusing on the evidence we have. Yeah, it's a camera footage. So for me, when it all comes to family values and family hierarchy in Vietnam all over again, that adults will say whatever they want. They're going to say, oh, we want to do this for you, you should be okay with it. No. Yes, there are things that children should be taught, like should not do drugs. You should not have sex without condoms. You don't go out after 12. If you're under 16, fine. Those are you should finish school before you want to do anything major in your life, because education is important. Yes, those are the must. But when it comes to affection, when it comes to how to express themselves, express them what they want as children who are under 18, we should have a voice. I did not have this, and I feel that it affects us. And it's until we see children as little humans, but with the voice of themselves, then we can start talking solution here. All of the solution I'm having at the adult level, I want to see something of the capacity of the mechanism that would give children the voice, tell them that they can speak their mind as well. And this will help with our education, because you know this. A lot of people are aware of the fact that many Vietnamese students are not expressive. They don't say their opinions in class, and I feel like this will actually would help with the solution with the problem we have.
And is that culturally, because very much I think in Eastern culture, Asian culture, it's respect your elders, right, or respect the person in authority, and is that where it comes in? So children are very reticent to speak up because they're taught from a young age you don't speak
talk
up.
Back to the elderly, to the adult, to your superiors, to your teacher. Yes, it is definitely a Vietnamese culture thing. I would not say it's an Eastern culture thing, because I don't want to generalize. I know there's a lot
Sorry if I generalize.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's a very common understanding. I think respecting the elderly is a fair ethics to have, like ethical moral point to have. However, I don't necessarily agree with respecting the elderly no matter what. For me, it should start from a point of like, I respect you for who you are, because you have ethics, because you have something for me to respect. The fact that you are old doesn't automatically mean I'm going to give you my respect. And for me, that's for me doesn't sit right. I know even though this is a culture thing, nobody question it. Like not many people question it. I question it. Everybody grows old. Why should I give you the privilege? I will be old too. Doesn't mean I'm going to expect everybody to respect me. And respecting the elder should not come from an authority point, standpoint. If an elder person were to come to me and be like, you have to respect me because I'm older than you, they're not using logic to convince me. They're using their biological degradation. Everybody has that. You are not the only one. Why are you using this as an argument?
I love that you just called someone, you used the term biological degradation to call somebody old. That is absolutely true, and a great way to call someone. Right? Because like you're more biologically degraded than me. I'm not going to listen to you.
No, just faster, because they were born before. I don't mean that.
That's a great way to put it. It's a very scientific way to talk about being older. But it's not just people being older, it's people in authority as well, right?
Yeah,
which are generally older.
I mean, I would definitely respect someone if they have merits in their argument. If they're going to use their biological feature to convince me, I'm not convinced. I'm sorry. So
if that's part of the problem, is children are afraid to speak up because of this ingrained cultural thing where you respect your elders or people in authority and you don't speak up. What are some of the solutions then?
So when I was writing about sexual abuse, specifically of underage school kids done by teachers, I talked to UNICEF, and this lady from UNICEF was telling me that there should be more encouragement, obviously, of students expressing themselves. Yes, definitely. I think that's falls more under the responsibility of the teachers, but students should also know they have this right as well. They shouldn't wait for the teacher to tell them that they have this right. There should be a mechanism where students are getting access to the fact that they are aware of their rights to speak out. And also, she suggested that there should be a hotline within the school that provides anonymity, where student can report abuses. I think that's very important. I don't think we have that yet in school. And also, there's actually been solution by the government, by the top government, the Ministry of Education and Training in May, made teaching prevention of sexual abuse mandatory in elementary school across Vietnam starting this year.
That's fantastic.
So essentially, kids will learn what is good touch, what is bad touch. That's fantastic. Very excited about that.
So reporting on something as serious as sexual abuse in children, how has that affected you personally?
It's very graphic. There are stories, there's things you read in the story because I put it there, because I pick out the best pieces that reflect the story so the readers get to know what is going on, but there's also graphic that I don't reveal. And I will only talk about it with friends, or if anybody asks me within reason, I would tell them. So for me, it's to deal with the fact that I'm losing faith in humanity every day, writing these stories. And that's the trick, you know. As a journalist, I feel I'm still honing my skills. I'm no expert. I'm not very senior. I'm earning my stripes. But as a journalist, my understanding is that you have to teach yourself that everything is interesting in order to report about the reality that we live in. And I don't find sexual abuse details interesting. It's not interesting. It's disgusting. But I have to package it in a way so that people are aware of this problem. So for me, that's very difficult. For me to have to jump through, have to power through that emotional breakdown that this is happening to kids in my age and kids younger than me. So it has affected me in a way that I would find myself like trembling. I couldn't type. I can't believe this is happening to some of the kids and a lot of my cousins at their age as well. And when I got through that, I pick up the phone, I call my aunt and my uncle, and I tell them this is what I know, this is what's happening. Are you talking to your kids about it? So I have managed to manifest or to transform my fear, me being shocked, into something, into some action besides writing. And I'm not going to be. I want to separate my journalism and my activities to counter this problem. I don't want them to collude. So I'm going to care my family. I'm going to tell them what I know. We never talk about this in my family. My grandmother has 7 kids. So I have 6 uncles and aunties, and each and every one of them has their own family. So you can imagine how big that is. My father had 6 brothers as well. So like they having their own big nuclear families. And I want to be the one who break down the silence, like, let's talk about sex. So I
How
think
does that go down at the family dinner table?
Oh no! Like it'll be whisper. Like I don't raise flag and like go into them like a riot. I'm like, let's talk about this. I don't do that. I wish, but like they will probably tone me down. I would try to sneak in the conversation very, very subtly, but like it's gonna hit them hard.
Of the conversation.
Yeah.
How do you not lose faith in humanity, like you said there? Like, what do you do to keep yourself positive? Because it's so tough, and like even when I've read your articles, it can make you be like, people are so horrible. But what do you do to keep yourself positive?
I'm going to teach myself not to be numb first. I'm going to teach myself to keep repeating to myself that this is not normal. Even though we are reporting this every day, there's always cases of somebody being raped and impregnated by the teacher. This is not normal, even though it's repeatedly happening. And for me, that's even more challenging than to stay positive. Once you normalize something, you lose the urge to solve it. Yeah, so then that's for me, it's even more challenging. How do I keep faith in humanity? I keep people who are countering this problem in my loop. I will talk to them. I will keep up to date with what they're doing, and keep asking about solutions. What can I do? As a journalist, I mean, I've already done my job. That's writing about it. But yes.
Give me an example then. I want to hear one of those people that keep you positive. Give me an example of something you hear about something positive that someone's doing and you're like, yes, something good is happening.
So I mentioned earlier about a Vietnamese woman who became a South Korean police officer. She's a fantastic example. She's one of the only 7 Vietnamese police officers in South Korea. She had to give up her nationality to be one. You can't be a Vietnamese citizen and be a South Korean police officer. So a story like that keep my hopes up. And like, she has to go through all these barriers. You have to give up with nationality. You have to learn a different language. You have to catch criminals in Korean. I can't even like converse my needs in Korean, and she's doing this. So stories like that keep my hopes up. And Blue Dragon is doing a wonderful job. I'm actually, so when it comes to all this sexual abuse stuff, yes, it's everything. Everybody knows it's bad. From moral standpoint, there's no argument. There's it's undoubtedly that is vile, but we need technical skills for that as well. You can't just be like, oh, it's bad, what can we do? I'm actually getting training about that. I was in Hanoi earlier for a fellowship where I'm taught to be, I don't know if that's a word, a sex ed fellowship. So I'm going to get a certificate in that field where I can talk technical skills, and I can have technical knowledge when it comes to sex education. And I feel that's very important as a journalist and as a person. I should know what it is about that aspect. So yes, solution that I see around me, that I can do myself. Knowledge is where I go to keep my humanity, keep my faith in humanity alive here. That I know things can be done. It's just that it's gonna take time.
That's so great to hear, because it is a really confronting topic. It's not what you want to talk about. It's horrible, but it exists and it's out there. And so it's good to hear that you're not getting it's not wearing you down.
Oh, it is. It is, but it's rebuilt itself every day. Yeah. We rebuild ourselves every day with new things we learn, right? We got broken down at the end of the day, and then tomorrow you rise up, you patch the pieces together, and hopefully you evolve to something greater and more meaningful of your better self.
So what's been the general response to your articles?
Very mixed. I'm trying to stay on the positive side because I know that once my work is put out there, it's going to be scrutinized. It's going to be booed by the naysayers, right? So I'm still working on dealing with that. But there has been a lot of positive responses like yourself. Like, again, coming back to my original point, you should know there's a problem. You can only solve a problem if you know there's a problem there. Everybody knows sexual abuse happens everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. I want people to know how it's happening. That's the question I'm most fascinated about, how and why. So I'm trying to push that further. I'm not going to judge the general responses of my story. I'm happy there are responses from the get-go, right? If it's numb, it's be like, whatever, nobody's reading it, then I'm going to be worried. But there are responses, and I'm going to keep up to date with those responses to see what they say.
Has it affected your relationships with men, or I don't know if you're lesbian, with women? Has it impacted on your sexual relationships? Because for me, that's such a tough and horrible thing to write about. Has that had an impact on your life?
No, it has not. Unfortunately, I've been very lucky to meet like-minded people, at least when it comes to sexual integrity. We have mutual respect. And I'm very vocal. I'm very vocal about what I do and what I believe in. So it's actually strengthened my relationship with people around me, with my romantic partner. I don't think it's actually affected us in any way. It affects me personally, but I'm not going to exert my anger of what is happening in the world on whoever I'm with. I don't think it's fair. Unless they are showing some signs that they are doing something wrong, then that's a different story. But I haven't, I think because I'm aware of all this problem, I would know who are the red flags, what are the red flags, so I wouldn't even begin to be with those people. So no, it has not affected my personal life.
Good, no, that's great to hear. Well, thank you so much for telling me all about your articles. If anyone's listening and you were concerned about listening to stories of sexual abuse, we're now going to move on, so there'll be no more talk of that. So if you have skipped through and you're looking for a part where we do move on from those kind of stories, this is the part now where you can start listening again. So your
Just a side note, I do write about other stuff other than sexual abuse. Yes, sexual abuse is not the only passion I have.
Well, I was going to
writing.
say you did write about. I read your article about the My Lai Massacre.
My Lai
Massacre just this morning, and I actually had tears in my eyes at the gym reading that. So I'll post that one because I've been aware of the My Lai Massacre for a few years now, and it's just one of the most horrible atrocities ever. So we'll post that article. And I was going to say, so tell me a little bit about I read your article about transgender and LGBTQ. Tell me a little bit about that in Vietnam, because we've talked about this on the podcast before. We had Daniel Doan, who's an out and proud Vietnamese man, in season 1. It's come up a couple of other times. I've been most impressed in Vietnam that it seems to be that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Daniel kind of backed me up on this, that there doesn't seem to be too much discrimination towards LGBTQ in Vietnam in terms of daily life. Like, I feel like it's and he was kind of saying the same, like, people just don't really care. It's kind of like, yeah, you are who you are. I don't know, would you find that to be true as well? And what's your experience writing about that community?
I would agree with what was his name?
Daniel Doan. Yeah, you haven't listened. You got to go back to season 1.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I will. I will do my
go
homework.
back to season 1 and listen to his episode. So we talk about that extensively.
I agree with him. At least in Ho Chi Minh City, I'm feeling that.
Yeah, Ho Chi Minh City. Sorry,
Ho Chi Minh City. You can't say Vietnam. That's
yeah. Sorry. So let's specify. We did talk about it. It's very different once you leave Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to say that Ho Chi Minh City is much more open-minded about LGBT presence and their expressions, which is lovely. This is one of the reasons why I love Ho Chi Minh City, love Saigon. However, it's very different for one to be indifferent about one's sexuality and actually respect it, I guess. It's like, oh, okay, I don't care what you do, just as long as you keep it away from my sight. That's very different from, I don't care who you are, just be happy and be whatever you want.
And which one of those two?
It's very mixed,
right,
I would say. I don't want to generalize. I know what has been the reaction to the LGBT presence, and I would say those are the two. Or the third one would be like, this is fantastic, I'm going to be part of this movement, I'm going to advocate your rights. So for me, those are the 3 responses or reaction I've seen in Saigon. I'm not going to say other city because I haven't been to other city. In Saigon, I've seen those. Yeah.
And so from the conversation with Daniel, there doesn't seem to be too much discrimination against people from that community. Would that be right? In Saigon, in terms of talking about job prospects, general treatment in life, they're generally treated quite equally.
There's not a lot of health services offered to LGBT people.
So that would be a problem then.
Yeah, but I don't know if that would be called discrimination. It's just a lack of that.
And is that improving?
It is improving. Saigon has the first LGBT focused hospital or like clinic or something a couple months ago. That's fantastic. And the LGBT, the transgender law also stipulates a lot of access to health services. Unfortunately, it has not come out. It has not been passed as a bill. So I'm really expecting to see that happening soon.
Oh, that's good. And last question before we move on to the final questions that I ask everybody. My last question: which one do you prefer, Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City?
Oh, that's a trick question. I'm not going to get away with that answer. I'm not going to answer it. Hoi An.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. Hoi An's pretty awesome. So we're going to finish with a series of questions. We ask every guest this at the end of each episode in season 2. First question is, what kind of bike do you drive, if any?
Scooter.
Yeah.
A white scooter. I have a lot of leg space, which I'm deprived of on airplane, so I'm very happy about that. And
so have you always driven in Ho Chi Minh City?
Oh, of course. I've been driving since I was 16.
And how do you handle the traffic here?
It's in our genes, man. It's Vietnamese. What kind of question is that?
Well, I asked too last week. I said, how do you deal? Why is there not road rage here? Because, in the West...
Road rage.
In the West,
there
you get
are
road rage.
There.
Not really. Everyone's so chilled. There's just chaos going on left,
and you're
right,
lucky
and
then.
centre. I've been here 3 years. You barely see anyone get angry. I feel like I'm the angriest man on the road, and I don't really do anything. I'm just in my head. I'm like, "Argh."
I see it in Hanoi a lot.
Really?
I don't see it here.
No.
For me, I'm not gonna get away from this answer either. But me driving in central areas in Saigon is so much nicer than the same experience in Hanoi. Okay. Central areas, like downtown areas in Hanoi, people drive without helmets and honk at you, and they give you the eyes, and I don't want to give them the same eyes. Like this Saigon is not happening the same. It's not the same. Everybody who has helmet, they seem civil. There's some idiots, but in my experience, it's nicer to drive in Saigon than Hanoi.
Yeah, I haven't really driven in Hanoi, but I mean, yeah, it's really civil here, despite just the absolute chaos. And two's answer was that it's the Buddhism.
What?
The fact that Buddhism is so prevalent here, that's why everyone's so
Seriously?
kind of zen. That was the
wow.
answer.
I was about to. I wasn't going to talk about it from that angle, but it's interesting that you mentioned that. Does that mean that Hanoi is not Buddhist? I didn't notice. Wait, what does that mean? But if you notice, there are not a lot of police officers on the street here.
No.
None. In Hanoi's every corner.
Oh, really?
There's many of them. Yeah, police officers, like traffic ones.
Now, one thing is, you see this often in Ho Chi Minh, and I'm sure nationwide. What's the oddest thing you've seen on a bike?
At first, when I saw this question, I thought of a slit pig.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty odd, right? Like,
it's odd, but then again, it's like, well, they have to transport it somehow. It's not that odd, but like the second thing that I think of is like, I see old couple driving each other, and they would hug each other, and you would see the man driving, but then one hand is on, one of his arm is wrapped around his belly, and under that is the girl's. It's a woman's hands. That's, for me, it's so bizarre because I only see young couples doing that, and I don't see old people doing it. I mean, by old I mean
people
like
have sex too. Remember?
Sure, in private, I just don't see them show affection. On a bike driving, and like very affectionately, like the guy would put his hand on the woman's hand. I'm like, that's beautiful. That's so freaking odd. Like, I don't see my parents do that. For me, that would be a lovingly odd thing.
Lovingly odd thing. That's beautiful. All right, you have 24 hours off. No more journalism. No more reporting. You can take a day off. What do you do with yourself?
I'm gonna be so vanilla. I want to go to the beach. So my perfect day.
Well, which beach? Because Saigon, there's not many beaches near here. So go on, tell us your perfect 24 hours off.
I'm gonna be so vanilla. Oh, you guys gonna judge me. It's gonna be personal as well. My perfect day would be, I wake up, I have a very nice fruity breakfast, have sex. Oh my god. I think it's very practical, yeah? Because 24 hours, something should be fun in that. 24 hours, they have sex, and then I would spend the whole morning reading in a brightly lit room, or it can be by the garden, it can be by the beach, and then have lunch and with either a philosopher or an activist, so I can have a heated debate with them at lunch. And then in the afternoon, I love cycling around the lake, so I would like to do that for 2 hours, and then do yoga, maybe sexy. Oh my god, how should we cut this out? No, I'm not. This is the same person, not different people.
No, just going cycling around the lake and then just randomly.
Like, I'm expressing, like, I want to spend 24 hours. For me, in a perfect day would be spending with the people that I love and I care about. So the activities of like cycling or reading can be done alone, but other stuff I would like other people to get involved. And I would cap up the night with a lovely dinner with my friends who are in Korea, and I very miss them.
Do you have a particular restaurant you would go to?
Are we talking Saigon?
Sure. This is a Saigon podcast.
Oh, so many. I really love this vegetarian restaurant. It's very small scale, but the services the food is great. I'm more of a food over ambience person, so I would definitely recommend Tip restaurant on Phan Kê Binh Street. very, very affordable, and the food is lovely. Yeah.
Cool. We'll put that in the notes as well. We'll get the link for that.
It's not a PR statement. I'm just stating my
don't worry,
favorite.
we talk about restaurants and beer and everything all the time. So if you had the next week to explore Vietnam, where would you go?
What? Oh. I've never been to Con Dao. I would love to go to Con Dao. You see, you would, like in the daytime, you would absorb all the suffering of the prison feel, and at night you enjoy yourself by the beach. I feel like that's a... I sound so vanilla when it comes to this question, but yeah, my needs are very simple.
I don't understand the definition of vanilla when you've just talked about sex for like the last 5 minutes. I also Con Dao, I don't know why that's vanilla, because Con Dao, I've not been, but I've heard it's beautiful. I know people who have stayed at the Six Senses, which would be a dream. It's a bit,
the reason why I say
pricey.
vanilla is because like it's just one of the major tourist destinations. I can't think
I
of
don't
it
know if
off the
Con Dao
chart.
is. I don't think that comes off the tip of the tongue when you think of tourist destinations.
Well, that's good then. I'm not vanilla.
Yeah, no,
That's
Con
wonderful.
Dao's a good one. I do want to go there. Me and my wife, we definitely want to check that out. But I don't know if we'll stay at the Six Senses. Maybe if they listen to this and they're like, oh yeah, you can come up here and record an episode and have a free night. That would be pretty awesome.
Oh wow.
And then the final question is, do you have a hidden gem in Saigon that you can share with our listeners?
Gym. My house. I don't go out and work out in front of people.
No, wait. Not a gym. Gem. G-E-M.
A jam. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a second language user.
No, sorry. It's my Scottish accent.
No, it's not
my Scottish
yours.
accent. Do you have a
Please
hidden...
bear in mind, listener, I make a lot of mistakes in this podcast, and I know it, but...
Listen, native speakers can't understand me. This is not a you problem. This is a me problem with my accent. Do you have a hidden gem that you can share with our listeners?
I don't think it's just hidden, but when you drive by Tu Tiem Bridge, there's that section when you look to the right, you see Pitexco, you see the middle finger building, and and you see this massive piece of Saigon that is not Saigon anymore at nighttime, and it hits you that the city is growing with or without you. So for me, it's like a point where I question where I have like a mild existential crisis, because it's like a hidden gem where you like reflect on yourself and the city where you lived in. So yeah, when you drive by Tu Tiem Bridge and you look to the right at nighttime, you see those massive blocks. So take a look at that.
Perfect. We'll put a link on the website as well for the dot on the map where you can go and check that out as well. So thank you so much. This has been incredible. Like fun, but also like obviously really deep and interesting. And there are some problems in Vietnam, like every country as well. And I think there is a lot of work to do. And I'm glad that somebody like yourself is shining a light on it. That obviously having a media presence, having the media report on these things is one of the most important things, because if people don't know that it's happening, then there's not going to be a solution, like you said. So while it can be confronting and while it's horrible to read about, it is happening and it's out there. And the only way we can really start to change is to learn about it and then take action. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I've worked with children my whole life. I think it's one of the most abhorrent things in the world. And so the fact that we can start to make a difference is supremely important. So well done on your work. What's next? What have you got? Obviously you don't need to tell us about specific articles that you're maybe writing, but what's next for you in your career?
Right. I'm looking forward to write more stories about children. At the end of the day, I think what the message I want to send is that I want children in Vietnam to have more voice. Not to have more voice. They do have voice. For them to have means to express them. Because I was deprived of this opportunity, again with the cultural hierarchy or whatever, and I really want to break that down. I will not be ready to have children on my own if this problem is not sorted.
So what would be your hopes and dreams then for the future in terms of what we've been talking about today?
I really wish that we had more transparency when it comes to information, and we are going towards that direction, and I'm very happy about that. I also hope that people don't see vulnerability and compassion as weaknesses. Those are usually characterized as feminine characters. I think men have that too, but you guys are just so screwed when it comes to like you have to suppress those feelings and those elements, and I feel like it should be expressed more. So yeah, I want Vietnam to have that.
Awesome. Well, let's hope, and I think it's good that I think it's getting that way. As you said, like legislation's changing, policy's changing, people are becoming more aware of it. There's more education in school, so I think it's moving in the right direction. As always with many of these things, it's going too slowly, but hopefully it can speed up and we'll get to a better place. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Sen. She's been an amazing guest. It's been an awesome episode, and I hope that people have enjoyed listening to you, and look out for future episodes.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
You're very welcome. Have a great day. Cheers. Thanks for listening to episode 2 of 7 Million Bikes, a Saigon podcast, and a massive thank you to my guest Sen Nguyen for not obviously being thoroughly interesting but entertaining to listen to as well. It was good to hear that she still could make light of it and wasn't too beaten down by the seriousness of her reporting that she does. I think she does a fantastic job, and it's great to shine a light on these issues. However discomforting they might be, it's good to get that message out there, education, and see that things are changing for the better. Maybe not as fast as we'd like, but it's still good to see. Thanks for listening. As always, it's great to know that so many people out there across the world are tuning in. If you want to leave me a message, you can get me at 7millionbikes@gmail.com, or send me a message on our Facebook, or just leave a review. That would be great. If you are looking for where you can listen anywhere: Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or the website 7millionbikes.com. So thanks again for listening. Check out the previous episodes if you've missed any, and if you've got any suggestions for someone that you'd like to hear being interviewed, drop me a line, let me know who they are. We can maybe try and get in touch and see if they want to come on the show. So thanks again. I really appreciate you listening. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're like me, you may use your laptop at places where you have to use public Wi-Fi. This opens you up to digital snoopers. It's a massive problem. It can be your internet service provider, or you know who, looking at what you do online, or a cyber criminal trying to steal your bank passwords or credit card info, or even a hacker at the next table trying to steal your sensitive data. These days, it is vital that you keep your data safe. NordVPN keeps all of these snoopers away. It makes your internet activity private, protects you from accessing dangerous websites that are phishing for your data, and lets you enjoy your favorite content securely, even while away from home. And it's easy to use. Even I could use it. I've actually been using NordVPN for years now here in Vietnam, and I'm excited to be an affiliate partner with them. I've used NordVPN to watch Netflix, BBC, Disney Plus with ease. And I also know that my information and data are safe from prying eyes, whoever they may be. Join now and you'll get 68% off and 3 months free when you go to my link, nordvpn.com/SMB. Just again, for those hard of hearing, nordvpn.com/SMB. The link is also in the show notes. I know nobody checks them out, but go check that out and you can get the link from wherever you're listening to this podcast. As an affiliate partner, it also means that I will get a small commission when you sign up, but at no extra cost to you. So not only will you be getting a great deal through 7 Million Bikes, you get a great VPN and you'll be supporting 7 Million Bikes podcast. Stay safe online and enjoy the shows you love. Any questions, just let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. And thanks for listening to this show. Cheers.